So good evening to all the participants and the attendees on this call today. I would like to request CA Preeti Savla, Chairperson of Women and Young Member Excellence Committee, to start the session.
Then you have to come back and have this more.
Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Preeti Savla, Central Council member, and friends. Welcome all of you to this session on each Friday we are doing for our young members. And this is the 12th session in continuation. And I congratulate the committee and entire team for supporting in organizing this program. I'm sure you must be also gaining a lot of knowledge out of these programs. And this is the platform for entire youth, our young members, to come and share their knowledge, to gain the knowledge. You can come at any point of time as a moderator or as a speaker. And this is a platform open to all of you. And I'm happy that 12 new such speakers have joined our forum. And today we have C. Bharat Jeswani, who will be taking us through the opportunities and the roles of chartered accountants in forensic audit. So the forensic audit investigations, the day by day, the importance of this is increasing, and one should have a knowledge of this. And that is why the young members also should know. We are also having certificate course and you can do various things around this. So this is just the base, what we want to share with all of you. And the Bharat, what the knowledge he has, I'm sure you will be actually attracted towards having career in forensic audit and investigations as a option. I also appreciate all the efforts of Yogesh, Zin, Shreya, Ankit, who are the moderators for this session. And of course, our office, Shanu, Ruchi, who are doing a lot of efforts for bringing out all these programs to you. And I also appreciate the efforts of all my audience, the young members. Let us plan a lot of things. Online, we are coming every week to you, but now we are also planning to have some offline programs, and starting with Youth RRC, which we have in the month of June, 24th and 25th June. Again, we are also planning Women RRC, women programs, independent directors programs, all in physical form. If you want to have programs in physical form, please do come and reach out to us. This is all. And we are planning to have, very soon we'll be completing the 15 sessions, then 25, again, everywhere. Stay in touch. Please block your time, block your calendar every Friday, 4 to 6 for different sessions, especially for our young members. Once again, welcome all of you, and over to Zeni.
Thank you, Preeti Savla, for your kind words. Today, friends, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our speaker of the day, CA Bharat Jeswani, who is going to talk to us on the opportunities in forensic accounting and fraud investigation. CA Bharat Jeswani has 15 years of experience in forensic accounting, fraud investigation, due diligence, internal audit, and fraud management. He is a member of expert team for drafting guidance on forensic accounting and investigation standards. He is a frequent visiting faculty of CI for forensic accounting and fraud detection. He is a trained CBI and has authorized a book with the title The Frauditor. In addition to all of this, he's worked with Income Tax Department, assisting in search operation and special audits. He's been a consultant of Director of Revenue Intelligence and has completed over 80 forensic audits globally. Considering his education history, though he is a chartered accountant, along with being a chartered accountant, he is a certified fraud examiner, certified forensic accountant, certified financial crime specialist. And to top it all, he is pursuing certified anti-money laundering specialist. With this brief introduction of CA Bharat Jeswani, I would like to request you all to welcome him and request him to take over the session from here.
Thank you so much, Zeni, for the very warm introduction. Thank you, Preeti ma'am, for welcoming me here, for having me here. for this discussion. I think I'll start sharing the screen also. Then we can proceed. Okay, I think it is visible, right? It is.
Yes.
Must be
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So when we talk about opportunities in forensic accounting as a field, as an area of practice, has grown exponentially in I feel in last 5 years, 6 years, it has grown exponentially, and it is only looking up. There are more and more opportunities coming in. In 2021, our institute ICAI came up with forensic accounting and investigation standards, which should become mandatory from 1st of July. From the next month, they should become mandatory. So we have been working on the guidance notes, which will also be released, which are now actually available for the public for their comments. And they would also be released along with the forensic standards, which would they will also become mandatory from the 1st of July. So ICAI being the only institute in the whole world that came up with the forensic accounting investigation standards. So there is no institute anywhere that has such detailed guidance, such detailed best practices being submitted, which could help the members, and it could teach the members what kind of best practices are required, what is how to handle different type of engagements which are covered in the forensic accounting domain. So it is a very big step which ICAI has taken, and it is going to shape the profession, and not just the Indian chartered accountants. I think they are showing the way to the professionals all around the world, because no other, as I said, there is no other institute that has come up with standards so detailed on the specific area of practice. And so it is only sensible for other institutes to simply adopt the forensic accounting standards which have been issued by ICAI. So that is what is going to happen in the future. And by coming up with these standards, they have legitimized the whole profession. They have provided best practice. They've tried to make standardized the whole process. So earlier you could not define, who is, even today, it is not clear who is a forensic accountant, who can practice as a forensic accountant, what exactly is their role, what exactly are they doing. So in this seminar, I'm trying to bring that out. I'm trying to explain that part. So that is my effort here, to trying to bring different types of variations, different type of services that forensic accounting skills can help you with. But it is still not clear, because see, if you are a chartered accountant, there's no specific institute that certifies somebody to be a forensic accountant. Mostly chartered accountants can have been practicing in this field, and there are other courses also. There's certified fraud examiners, there is certified financial crime specialists, and there's certified anti-money laundering. There are a few courses which are recognized, which are very close to the financial crime field, and that's why they are the ones that can be correlated. But still, there is no one simple course, one specific course that that can specifically say that this is for somebody. Raised their hand. I think I saw that in the notifications. Should we look at questions later, or I think we can do it on the way also?
We have a Q&A session at the end. Sorry.
Okay. In that case, okay. So everybody, please save your questions. And but if okay, so if somebody raises their hand, they cannot talk here directly, right? That is how it is. I mean, they would be sending the questions to you.
Yes, it's a direct.
Okay. So please, all of you, whoever has questions, please you try to save your questions for the end. So we will have that. The session would be, I think it would be max 1 hour, 15 minutes, something, and after that we can have the questions. So in here, I'm trying to bring out what a forensic accountant professional is, who is a forensic accountant. But as I was saying, there is no specific definition. There is not anything specific. So it is simply based on the, skills. So what kind of skills that you possess? There are some specific skills that are required. And those skills which define a forensic accountant, those skills can be used in for multiple services. So we'll be discussing that. So forensic accounting is a specialized field which combines accounting, auditing, investigation, and one thing very common when you hear a forensic accountant is fraud. Okay. So one more thing that I would like to bring up, that our ICAI has been taking efforts to distinguish forensic accounting and auditing. So they are very much against using the word forensic audit, because again, in their opinion, auditing is totally different from forensic accounting. Though there, in my opinion, there is a lot of overlap, but this is the stand of ICAI that we do not need to intermingle auditing and forensic accounting, and we need to keep them separate wherever it is possible. So as I was saying, one most important thing that when anybody hears about, forensic accounting, the most important thing that comes to your mind is fraud, which is like a common understanding of that's something to do with fraud investigations. So that is a very important aspect of fraud investigations. Mostly people, whenever I meet people, they ask me, what type of cases have you done? And I tell them, okay, this whistleblower investigation we did an investigation for the tax authorities or for enforcement directorate. So we tell them all the type of investigation. So what they think of us, whenever somebody meets us, they think of us as some kind of detectives, like some kind of Sherlock Holmes in the that is the first understanding that comes whenever somebody talks to us. But that is not the case. That is not the case in my experience. And what I'll tell you is, in the type of engagements that we take, in the core of forensic accounting, the core of forensic accounting is not fraud. The core of forensic accounting is evidence. That is the most important element that one has to understand, that one has to deal with in most of their engagements. So it is very rarely that we are engaged by some entity to, we are told that these are the books of accounts or these are our financials, and you look into it and figure out if there is some kind of fraud anywhere, detect fraud. That is rarely, and those type of engagements are for due diligence. Yeah, in due diligence, we are proactively looking for fraud. Sometimes we do get engagements wherein organizations are feeling that, there is something suspicious going on. Maybe their profits are not up to the mark. They believe that the profits could be much higher, but the profits are not as expected. And in that case, they would want us to look into the books. And in that scenario, we are actually doing the fraud detection part. We are trying to figure out where, which account, which employee could be involved in the fraud. So that there is this vast difference in what we really do and what is the perceived image. So it is mostly what we really do is when do we come in? When do forensic accountants come in? What normally happens is there has been some kind of a fraud or some kind of a malpractice, some manipulation has happened. And now the management or the entity or the individual is fully aware that, fraud has happened. So why have they invited us? Now they want us to prove or disprove the same in a court of law. So that is the main purpose for which a forensic accountant is engaged. And in that case also we are mostly, it all depends on the evidence. Of course, we as professionals, we have some serious ethics. We need to comply with our ethics. We have to comply with our morals. But what happens in most of the cases is really what the evidence is. There is a lot of evidence manipulation that happens, evidence destruction that happens, because what finally stands in any court of law is evidence. So it is very important to understand the concepts related to evidence for becoming a successful forensic accountant. That is what matters the most. So we have a standard on evidence also in forensic accounting investigation standards, which is the most important standard in the whole all the standards. Evidence is the most important standard. And I was lucky enough to be one of the members who drafted the guidance note on the evidence standard. So it is very important. And even for forensic accountants, evidence is the most important aspect. So how evidence is the most important aspect, we will be discussing all those things. So in India, not just in India, everywhere, the frauds are increasing. There is a lot, and it is a cat and mouse game. It is going on since the invention of money. There is fraud. It is even our very own Chanakya had come up with system of manipulations, financial frauds. So if you go through the system that he had designed, where he speaks about 40 different types of financial frauds in the kingdom that could be done. So if you go through those 40 different manipulations, I think all of them, as they are still prevalent. In the same manner, it is just because of the changing technology. So with the changing technology, the methods, the permutations have changed. The ways of doing fraud have changed. But if you look at the core, if you look at the essence of how frauds are being done, they are still the same. It is still so many years ago, hundreds of years ago, something that had been suggested is still very much relevant even in today's world. So what I'm saying is that fraud has been since the invention of money, and it will be, I think, forever there. So that is the reason why now this specific field of forensic accounting, specialization in forensic accounting, is gaining a lot of traction, gaining a lot of recognition. So it is I will not say the right time, but it is always a right time to, if you would like to enter in this field, it is very important that you start now. So these are just general what kind of roles and skills that are required by a forensic accountant. So forensic accountants are responsible for investigating financial discrepancies, analyzing complex financial data, tracing funds, providing expert witness testimony, and assisting in legal proceedings. So these are just definitions which I took from a book. And in the future slides, we'll be discussing specific type of engagements and some case studies also, so that you can, understand those engagements better. What kind of assignments are we doing? What kind of and the skills that I'm mentioning here, they are all needed. They are all expected of a forensic accountant. Forensic accountant need a strong foundation in accounting, auditing, financial analysis, legal procedures. They should have the ability to analyze and interpret financial data, identify patterns, and have a keen eye for detail. Again, all these things also point at, as we are perceived, they are mostly focused on fraud detection. But again, these are definitions, and these are snippets that I've taken from the books on forensic accounting. But what we'll be talking is about is real life in the next few slides. Okay, so we are here with investigations, which is the core. Okay, I'll just take a quick water break, and I'll also look at this question that has come. Any online course for fraud detection? I don't think, I mean, there must be, I'm not aware of anything specific for fraud detection. There is this ICAI certificate course also, if you like, forensic accounting and fraud detection, that also covers fraud detection. Even certified fraud examiner, which is a certificate course, it is also an online course because you have to give the exam online itself. That is quite an elaborate course on for fraud detection. But all these are not very specific just to fraud detection. They cover a wider area, but they also cover fraud detection, which was your query. Okay. Okay, I don't know how and when to identify when the fraud has happened. Okay. How and when to identify? I'm just trying to figure out how to close this screen. Okay, yeah, found it. Okay, so the question is how and when to identify that there was fraud happened. Okay, so when fraud has happened. Somebody said something. Did somebody say something? Okay, so I'll just get back to this question and then I'll talk about investigations. So when fraud has happened, whenever fraud has happened, no, there would be some kind of red flag that would show up. So red flags are basically indicators that something is going wrong. So in those scenarios, when something has been going wrong, probably it will show up in some or the other account or in some or the other way. So that is the way. Once you have a red flag, then you have to investigate it further. Based on after investigation, you can figure out if the fraud had happened or not. Okay. So I think we'll continue. So investigations is the core of forensic accounting. It has always been what is understood of forensic accounting has come up from investigations. So what do you mean by investigations? So there is a suspected fraud. Okay, there is suspected fraud. Now you need to look into it. First, you have to investigate. There are proper methodologies for investigations. And again, our forensic accounting and investigation standards teach you the best practices, how to, proceed with an investigation, how to start an investigation, how to proceed with it, how to conclude it. For all the aspects of an investigation, there we have some or the other standard. So I will be giving brief, brief ideas wherever I can regarding what standard. So there are investigation is the core of forensic accounting. So here I will be discussing all different types of investigations that one is engaged for. So first is the most common, which is whistleblower investigation. What happens is, as per the report of Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, ACFE issues a report every alternate year, which is called Report to the Nations. So they tell us about overall fraud and abuse, the statistics related to fraud and abuse globally. So every alternate year, they are talking about 5% of turnover is lost due to fraud on an average in or most of the organization. Obviously, some of the organizations are susceptible more, they are losing more. Some of the organizations are not, they have good systems. But on an average, globally, the world is losing about 5% of the global turnover, which is lost due to financial frauds, and mostly due to occupational fraud. The corporates are losing a lot because of the occupational frauds. So what, and they, in the same report, every time they mention is the best way how somebody gets to know about fraud is when somebody complains about it, somebody inside or somebody who is aware of these kind of practices happening in the organization, they complain about it. So the person who complains is known as a whistleblower. And now many laws have come up to protect whistleblowers, and it has become very common that somebody blows the whistle, and once the whistleblower complains, the investigation starts. So this is the most common type of work I feel that forensic accountants are engaged for. So I have myself been involved in more than 30-40 cases wherein occupational fraud is involved, wherein it is not always a whistleblower investigation. I think there's sometimes even during the course of internal audit, the auditor could come across some kind of anomaly or some kind of something which cannot be explained, or some pattern which says that there is something wrong here, or something is going on. In that case also, in such situations also, investigations are started. So these are basically internal investigations or corporate investigations. So this is one most common type of work or engagement that we get, which is whistleblower investigation. Then okay, more on how to conclude, I mean, how to proceed with an investigation. I'll just give a very brief methodology, which is, again, we are in this session is about opportunities, but if you understand how we actually take up the engagements, you would be better in a better position to understand how things work. And so basically, when there is a suspected fraud, okay, you would be asked to look into it. So after you are being asked about if you have been told this is what is suspected, so then you create a hypothesis. So there is a standard for that also. So that is the methodology. First, you create a hypothesis. You assume that the fraud has happened, and you assume somebody must have done it. Who could have done it? Who could be responsible, or and how exactly the fraud could have been done. So first you create a hypothesis, then you try to prove or disprove the hypothesis. So first you create a hypothesis, then you try to design procedures around that hypothesis as to how exactly are you going to verify if what has been done or not. So that is how the flow of the investigation goes. After you have then you perform those procedures to check the hypothesis, to verify the hypothesis, and in the end you would either prove the hypothesis or you would disprove, or maybe you could not gather sufficient information to prove or disprove. So in that case also it would be not proved. So either way, this is how the process works. in all investigations, whichever all the investigations that we'll be discussing, wherever you take up an investigation, there has to be one assumption that you have to go with. That assumption has to be that this issue, this matter could end up in a court of law. Even if you have been engaged by company management and they have very specifically told you that we don't intend to go to a court of law, and there is no way that we just want to know who has done this, and we just want to recover the money from that person. Even in that scenario, you would still want to, as a best practice, you have to assume that this would end up in a court of law. And why do we go with that assumption is because if the matter goes to a court of law, then you need all the procedures that you have followed during the investigation. And if you have followed all those procedures with this assumption that it could end up in a court of law, only then will you be able to succeed in that case. Okay, only then will that case could survive, because there are some very strict rules of evidence about admissibility of evidence in a court, and all those things have to be followed during the course of investigation when evidence is being collected, when people are interviewed, confessions are being taken. During all the procedures, you need to be well aware of what is the admissibility of this. Will it be acceptable in the court? Will whatever information I'm gathering, can I just submit it in court? Will it be acceptable as evidence? Will it help my case? So that even if it doesn't, in the end, if it doesn't go to the court, if it was just as it was being told, it was just a matter which has to be resolved internally, and it is not. But still, the assumption that it could go to a court of law is always extremely important. So whistleblowing, one again, this reminds me of an interesting case wherein there was some suspected fraud of about, I think, 50-60 lakhs in a company. So they had come to me, and I think this is 2016 or 17, sometime around that time there was. So they had come to me because the suspected, it was internal fraud. It was a case of internal fraud, wherein there was one of the managers. So it was a company that was making pickles, and they had their distribution at many cities. So they had their own stores wherein they would distribute their products. So one of the managers who was working with them since last 30 years, in that specific store, there was some suspected manipulation, and it started wherein one of the daters had asked for their ledger, the one you need as an audit confirmation, data confirmation during audit process. So for that, but they were not providing the ledger to that data. And so the data then got in touch with the management of the company, the central head office management of the company. And then when it was looked in detail, when it was looked further, they realized that, there is the data's ledger was, and many more data ledgers were not properly maintained, and there were many discrepancies. So there were too many cash transactions involved in that case. And then when that one tip came in, then the internal auditors, then they verified the stock, then there was a discrepancy of about 30 lakhs in the stock also. So then they came to me, and then when I investigated, I came up with a fraud of about 5 crores, which was again suspected fraud. And then I spoke to the management, and I told them that, this can be handled because we have sufficient evidence to prove that they have committed the fraud. And so also the person who is involved, they are like family, because they have been working with you for over 30 years. So it is best that, you just sit across a table and resolve this. and you should recover your money, is what we assume, that they should be able to recover their money. But our client had been recently been his son, I mean the one whom we were representing, his son had taken over the business, and he wanted to set an example. So he said that no, we won't sit across the table with any criminals, and we would want to take this to a court, and we would like to settle it, and we would want to set an example. We would like to show the people that any kind of malpractice does not happen in our organization, and that person who is responsible should be sent behind bars. It doesn't matter if we recover the money or we don't, or whatever happens. That is not our concern. We would like to send them. So because we went with the assumption that this could end up in court, we were even prepared that if this had to be taken to a court of law, we could still, our investigation, our report would stand. And so that has to, though again there were in a case there are so many twists that come in. We could not still go to the court because if we realize that if we take this course, if we take this to the court of law, what will happen is that the other person could blame them for money laundering. So it again became very complicated. But always there has to be an assumption that this could be and this could end up in a court of law. So that has to be always there. One has to all in any investigation, they should be well aware of all the rules of evidence, everything related to evidence and how to collect evidence. All that has to be very, very clear for everybody. So this is one very common investigation wherein some whistleblower would complain. Again, most organizations do not have a proper whistleblower policy or a proper mechanism for whistleblowers. So that is the reason why many complaints don't really come. So because people are always scared of complaining against anybody, because they are always, if I'm aware that one of my managers is involved in some malpractices, so I'm not sure where to complain, whom to complain. If I complain to somebody more senior, some senior to my manager, there is a possibility that he could also be with him in it, and then I could lose my job, or there could be more other consequences. So that is the reason why organizations need to have a proper whistleblower policy, proper fraud risk management policy, which we'll be discussing again. A different type of engagement is fraud risk management. But that is one problem because of which whistleblower investigations are not that common in India. Because in India, there are not such. But what I've seen out, like in, of course, in US, most of the organizations have the proper whistleblower system and proper fraud risk management system. Even medium-sized organizations are very serious about this. Because they have compliance laws wherein if a fraud happens and one of the employees is responsible, so the organization, if it did not have a proper fraud risk management system or proper policy, they will have to pay fines for the fraud being committed by one of their employees. So that is the reason why they are very serious about compliance to these policies. But in India, what I have observed is even some very big organizations, because when we go there and we investigate, then we realize that, okay, an organization doing a turnover about 150, 200 crores did not have even the most basic internal control systems, which are expected even of a 2 crores, an organization doing a 2 crore turnover. So that is one problem that we have, and because of that, these type of investigations are not that common, and it is also very hard to explain it to organizations that they should get into, they should have a fraud risk management system in place, because they feel that we are trying to sell something that they don't need. We are trying to sell services which are not required. That is the feeling. I had a client who had engaged me for some other purpose. They had engaged me for structuring some transactions. And when going through their books, going through their systems, I realized that there was absolutely no internal control in place. And that, so I just told them that, there could be, because they were doing a turnover of about 200 crores. I said, there is a very high possibility that you could be, defrauded, and you are running a risk of at least 10 crores, which is a lot of money. So you should, have a formal internal control system. You have a formal risk management system, and they just laughed it out, like as if, and this is the assumption in almost all the organizations that, fraud does not happen to us. Fraud is not possible at our end, because we trust our people are loyal, and we have the basic checks and systems in place. And there is another assumption some people have, that if we have an internal audit department, then fraud is not possible in an organization, because there is another check that is happening. Somebody is verifying, checking continuously. That is also again a very flawed assumption. That is also again does not make any sense. Internal auditors are not proactively looking for fraud, unless, of course, if they are not, they have to be trained also for that. But in general, also internal auditors are not proactively looking for fraud. So if, unless and until there is some proactive fraud detection system and proper reporting system, fraud reporting system in place, there's no way that one can be secure. So talking about that organization that had which I told about, having a fraud risk management system, and they just simply denied it, laughed it out. And it was just after about 8 or 10 months later, that I was called upon by them to investigate a fraud, and they had been defrauded of about 70-80 crores by another company, which is, they had gotten into a joint venture with another company, and that company had it was the understanding, they got a 400 crores project from the government for some form of electric installations. I mean, and construction. That was the project for about 400 crores. So they had an understanding, how they were supposed to divide the profits, and they had even hired a big consultancy firm to structure the transactions as to how exactly the profits are to be divided amongst them. So what kind of a structure will they show? What if it would be a joint venture or a subcontracting? And they came up with the structures that could minimize their taxation, and at the same time the profits could get distributed fairly as they had decided. But what happened in the end was that they had made too many contracts, and they had made the structure very complex, which, when things become very complex, there is a lot of scope for manipulation. So that is what was happening there. So the other entity took advantage of the complexity. Plus, so they manipulated their books. They inflated the expenses that were done by them, and they simply just diverted the profits towards themselves. So they were defrauded of about 80 crores, and that could not be recovered. I think we did the forensic audit, we proved, but still they could not go to court, because first they wanted to recover about the 10-20 crores which they were offering. After that is recovered, then they would want to go to court. And in my opinion, I don't think it would ever be recovered, because that also is one thing. We'll be discussing about asset tracing and asset recovery also. So in globally, the asset recovery or asset tracing is at about 7%, which is extremely low. So if one loses assets to fraud, they are recovering somewhat about 7%. That too, that is with the public departments, that is with the public sector, not the private sector does not have the resources also to recover their assets. Public sector still can have enforce recovery, so they have many law enforcement and other enforcement agencies which could help in recovery of the asset, and they can also get government cooperation from international governments, other governments. So, but the private sector does not have so many resources, and they have a recovery rate is even lower than 7%. So there is what fraud prevention is extremely important. Fraud investigation is of course it is very important, but in the what I feel is that if organizations were to prevent fraud, then all this would not be, and they would not lose that much money. So again, so the next type of investigation that we'll talk about is diversion of funds. So this is a very common type of investigation for which banks hire. I think very recently there was this empanelment by Indian Banking Association. IBA opens up empanelment, I think, after every 2 years. So for that, CA firms can empanel themselves, and it is a good these are good type of engagements, whereas I think some people are raising hands. I think we will be having a question answer round in the end. Okay. So IBA empanels chartered accountant firms, wherein they would then first you have to fill in the registration and the empanelment form. Of course, we are all aware of the empanelment process. There are various type of empanelments that we do. So once IBA shortlists you, once it selects you, then the list is released with all the banks. Okay, all the public banks, public sector banks, and then these banks, then they on their own they decide whenever they would want to hire you, engage you. So there are different categories, I think, somewhere where the exposure of the bank is less than 50 crores and when the exposure of the bank is more than 50 crores. So when the bank feels that, after giving the loan, it feels that I think there is some disturbance. Okay, that is from outside. Okay, so if the bank feels that, they, after giving the loan, that the borrower is using those funds for his personal investments or for buying personal assets, or diverting those funds outside of the company, or using those funds not for the purpose that the loans was borrowed. The funds were borrowed. For example, if I borrowed funds for working capital, for my day-to-day working capital, and then I'm using those funds to buy personal assets or buy fixed assets. Either way, some or the other way I'm using those funds, which is in itself is a fraud. If I have promised the bank that I'm borrowing these funds for this XYZ purpose, and then I'm using those funds for some other purpose, and I do not intend to pay back the loan. So in such a scenario, it is that is a fraud, because I do not intend to pay back the loan, and I'm using those funds for some other purpose. So these types of investigating these type of malpractices, banks engages chartered accountants. So you would have to look into what has been where the funds have moved. So these are good assignments, interesting assignments, wherein one has to look at the movement of the funds. So somebody would, if they want to divert the funds, they would of course use some kind of related parties, or they would use some other accomplice, wherein they could do fake billing, move the funds from one company to another, and then somehow bring back the money to their own company. So there are various ways. So you in these investigations, mostly you have to trace the movement of funds. Once the loan has been disbursed, that how the funds have been used. This is the core of this type of engagement. Okay. Diversion of funds, again, very similar kind of engagement for which resolution professionals. So resolution professionals are ones who deal with bankruptcy cases. So when handling a complete liquidation or bankruptcy, the resolution professional has to evaluate if the funds were diverted, or if somebody has purchased any kind of assets just before declaring bankruptcy, or somehow moved the funds so that the creditors do not get the fair value of their investment. So hi. Sorry, I think there was some internet problem, I feel. Okay. Could you please again make me a co-host so that I can share my screen?
Yes, Bharat sir, will make you co-host in some time. Like give us a second.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay. So as again, let them. So as I very recently I heard about this uh, whole Hero Motocorp investigation being going on. So there has the investigation has been started by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Again, SFIO is the one. I think okay, they've made me a co-host, so I'll just share my screen. Yes. So Ministry of Corporate Affairs is investigating Hero Motocorp, and the investigation is basically it started after an income tax investigation which started in I think last year, somewhere around March 2022. So they had discovered about 800 crores of tax evasion by Hero Motocorp. So their allegation was that Hero had been booking fake expenses by making payments to another an event management company. So that was their allegation, and so the assumption here that MCA and SFIO are making is that the other company where expenses were being booked is actually the ultimate beneficial owner of that company is Hero Motocorp itself. So that is what they are investigating. So companies would, SFIO would also hire forensic accountants to investigate specific types of frauds. For example, like this type of fraud, or if there is a very complex intercompany holding wherein companies are being used to structure transactions. So even such type of frauds. So corporate frauds are investigated by SFIO. That is also a very crucial area of practice. But what I've seen is, in the case of SFIO, the number of investigations that are happening are still very low. I mean, they only look into some serious fraud, big fraud cases. The regular normal fraud cases that happen quite regularly in companies, they are not investigating those. So number of assignments that are there in SFIO are not very high, is what I feel. Then there is SEBI. SEBI is also hiring forensic accountants for investigating securities fraud. Somebody who has done so what involves securities fraud is market manipulation, which is like, market manipulation could involve schemes like what could be the schemes, like what we pump and dump schemes. Yes, pump and dump is one common scheme, wherein people first increase the share price of just a second. Yes. So they increase the share price of a particular share by trading in themselves, and then they just, when the price goes high, they just sell it off, sell off all their holdings, and eventually the price falls because it was there was no real basic real logic behind the increase in price. It was basically pumped for the purpose of this specific manipulation. So this is one type of securities fraud which are being investigated. So how it was done, who were the people involved, and first is to identify if something like this is going on. If somebody is artificially inflating a price of certain shares, then there are washing schemes also, wherein just the price is not increased, but it is just the volumes are increased, of the number of trades are increased, just to show that a certain share is very much available. Another very common type of fraud which is investigated is insider trading, which is somebody with non-public information uses that information to get gains, to gain in shares. So that is one very common type of fraud in securities fraud being investigated. And then misrepresentation is a very serious offense in India. So if some company that is coming up with a public issue misrepresents whatever is there in their financials or in their offerings, so that is also a very serious issue which has to be investigated. So for all these things, SEBI hires forensic accountants, but it is normally some very big firms that get empaneled, because the criteria, the requirements of SEBI are, I mean, they are hard to accomplish those criteria. Yes, somebody has mentioned Arshad Varthi is included in the YouTube market manipulation. Yes, that is true. He is. Okay. So, okay, corruption cases. FCPA investigations are also another area where forensic accountants are hired. So if there is a suspected case of corruption by a public official, so I think like money laundering, those are also that would be corruption cases normally investigated by CBI. But CBI can always take help from forensic accountants. I have trained CBI officials. I've also been a consultant informally to CBI officials. So they do take help, but in themselves they are quite capable. So you don't normally get too many corruption cases. FCPA investigations is another area. FCPA is Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which is a law in the United States, but it has global implications. So countries across the world, if there is an act of corruption, wherein some US company or US national or some company which also operates in the US pays a bribe to a foreign officer. So in those cases, there are FCPA investigations, which have very high penalties and sanctions. So they are very serious matters, such serious issues, and they are looking for forensic accountants. So normally they are investigated by the law enforcement in the US itself, from the US itself, but they are also looking for accountants, forensic accountants in the local forensic accountants to help them with the investigations. Income tax, GST, of course, income tax department has been hiring for special audits. They have been hiring. They are not specifically forensic accounting engagements, but they actually fall in the area also. There are various type of cases that you have to work on, where they are basically required for understanding tax frauds, where if you have to figure out where the tax fraud could have happened, what kind of mechanisms or MOs could have been used to evade taxes. Income tax and GST department, they also hire you, because I've worked in a few cases, for digital forensics and for the complete investigation itself. So what they do is, when they raid some entity, and they collect all the data. So first they need specific experts in digital forensics, which again, which is not the core of forensic accountants. There are some different experts in digital forensics, but you can always, if you are interested, you can always learn the procedures. You can always know how to do digital forensics. So they would hire you to first, extract the data, to collect all the data, with maintaining its integrity. And when the data is collected, then they need forensic accountants to investigate that data and to figure out how exactly tax has been evaded, how much tax has been evaded. That for that part, they need you. So I have worked with a digital forensics firm who, in association, so they would collect all the data and then they would share with us. We are not allowed to do this from our office or anywhere else. We have to be inside the income tax department or the GST department, and inside the department itself we have to complete our investigation for that and provide a report to the department, which they will again use further for collecting the taxes. So this is that is one area which is, and what I've seen, these departments are now looking towards forensic accountants, and they are engaging them more and more. Earlier it was, I have even been associated with income tax officials and GST. So I've even assisted them in the raids, formally as well as informally, wherein we tell them, how to investigate tax fraud. So we have assisted them in those lines also. Narcotics investigations, again, very popular investigation. Just to give an example, was on after the death of Sushant Singh Rajput, there was an investigation that was started first by narcotics department. So a very dear friend of mine, Chokshi and Chokshi LLP, you might have heard. So they were the ones who were conducting the investigation. So it is, even they had to analyze all the WhatsApp messages between these people, wherein they were using some form of code words as to where the drugs will be supplied, how. So even now narcotics departments, they are also hiring us for investigation. One I've missed in the list is again the police. So in Maharashtra, there is economic offense wing, which has proper engagements for front. I myself have been very I have not been involved with EOWs, but EOWs are giving a lot of work to forensic accountants. So I have some very close friends of mine who have been working with economic offense wings in Maharashtra, and they are called something else in other states. At some state they are called EOW, some state they are called something else. So they also have a lot of work for. So you can empanel yourself, your firm with them, and then they would contact you for investigations. So okay, so that is all the type of investigation. Then I said asset tracing in itself is a very important field, because see, it all comes down to the asset. In most of the cases that I've seen is that once the fraud has been committed, okay, even if you can catch hold of the criminal, still it is almost near impossible to get hold of their assets, which again, as I said, global statistics tell us that around 7% is the recovery in recovery of assets. So it is quite low. So asset tracing is a very specialized field, which can involve, identifying where the assets could have been held. So this is used by basically enforcement agencies use services of forensic accountants for asset tracing for economic offenders. For example, like we are aware of cases of Vijay Mallya or Nirav Modi. These are the poster boys of economic offense in India. So they were, when you need to, they did not have assets all lined up in India. They had assets all over the world. And one would, when if you have to launder money, if you have to hide your assets, you would use various structures, and you would use various offshore accounts and very complex structures. So you could have a company which could be in Panama, which is controlled by a trust which is in Cayman Islands, which is again has a subsidiary in Hong Kong. So there are very complex structures which are made, and so these entities which are registered here and there with cross holdings and complex structures. So these entities, they hold the assets. To recover those assets, because even if that this asset belongs to this XYZ person, you cannot actually recover it, because it would be tangled in such a complex structure, and all these countries, they offer such bank secrecy and corporate secrecy. So you cannot actually identify whom the asset belongs to. As you might have heard, I think it came in 2016, the Panama Papers, the leak of the Panama leak that came up in 2016. So many celebrities were identified with that they have assets here and there, but nothing really, I don't feel anything concrete happened, because anyways, any which way, if they could, they could conclude that it is somebody's asset, the person could very easily at the end deny it, and they could just they will just have to let go of the assets maybe, but they will not go behind the bars, because there are such complex structures that are available. So asset tracing is a very specialized field. You need to have understanding of the various tools that are available. Mostly in these cases, these are international engagements, and you need cooperation from enforcement and courts internationally. And so for that, you need to understand all the laws and tools that are available. And I think there is a lot of scope because there are very few entities who are privately providing services in this domain, mostly done by enforcement themselves, but they do take help from private entities, and the payout is also quite high, because you get paid in percentage of the assets that you could trace or recover. So in that sense, it is a very lucrative field, but as you know, as the statistic says, it is rarely one is that successful with asset tracing. Okay. Risk management, as I said, I have discussed a lot about fraud risk management. AML compliance is becoming a very big area of practice, and that is also very recent. AML compliance has become big. Most of the countries have become very serious about anti-money laundering. They have come up with laws. Even we have Prevention of Money Laundering Act, in which recently even chartered accountants and company secretaries and cost accountants have been added. So most of the countries have some or the other law related to anti-money laundering. So what is AML compliance? So basically, if an organization is somehow involved in money laundering, or their employees are using that organization to launder money, in that case, that organization will have to pay heavy penalties and face criminal charges. So as policy, because the organization, when we are looking at they are multinational organizations who are across geographies and across different industries. So it is, you cannot be aware of what is happening where all the time. So you need to have a proper anti-money laundering policy, anti-money laundering system, to ensure that your organization has not been used for money laundering. So it is in various cases it is found. I just recently had read it somewhere, but I don't remember the company's name. One of the companies was investigated for money laundering, and then it was even prosecuted for because one of its employees was using the company to launder money. But then it was not charged, it was not penalized, because it showed that they had a proper anti-money laundering process in place, compliance program in place, wherein they had set up policies so that there could not be any kind of money laundering through their organization. They had a proper reporting mechanism, and they had conducted trainings to train their employees regarding the AML compliance. So they were not fined because they had the AML compliance in place. So after you have the AML compliance in place, it is, even then if your organization is used for money laundering, so you will not be fined or charged. So that is the reason why it is very important. Anyway, it is very important to protect your organization. So one has to. Recently, I visited Dubai for a fraud conference and for another engagement, but there I observed that the UAE is very serious about money laundering. That is because FATF review is going to happen, I think, this year. That is the only reason why they had come up with corporate tax also, because they did not want to be blacklisted by FATF. So plus they have taken very serious steps about anti-money laundering. They have identified a few industries. So they are now doing inspections. So if during the course of investigation, if in inspection, if they find out some instance of money laundering or there is some kind of money laundering that could have happened in that organization. So in that case, then the fines are very heavy in UAE. So what I saw there is huge scope for anti-money laundering. So because of the inspections, obviously chartered accountants are being engaged to manage these inspections, to deal with those authorities. But other than that, they are also being asked to do the proactively. Organizations are setting up compliance. They are doing the developing policies and procedures so that AML, when these officers come in, investigators come in, there is no problem with them. Fraud risk management, again, as I said, it is organizations need to have a proper fraud risk management system, which involves, first doing a risk assessment, identifying what areas of fraud, where fraud is possible, what type of MOs are possible, which areas are more prone, and then after the risk assessment, then you design an internal control system. You design a whistleblower policy, how to complain about fraud, how to deal with fraud. You design a response plan, an incident, who will be reported to, who will be taking care of the investigation, how it will be done, who will take care of digital forensics if required. All these things are predetermined. And then there is ethics training, which is a part of fraud, where all the employees are very specifically told what is wrong, what is right, so that they cannot rationalize their actions later. So all these are slowly people are realizing the importance of fraud risk management, but I still feel there is a lot to do. Especially in India, what I've seen is most of even bigger organizations do not have a formal fraud risk management system, because they feel that fraud cannot happen in their organization, and they are just bulletproof as far as fraud is concerned. So that is, again, as I say, though it is very important, but it is very hard to convince a client, even if they really need it. It is really hard to explain it to them that they should get into fraud risk management. FCPA compliance is, again, FCPA, I said, is Foreign Corrupt Practice Act, which is applicable to globally to entities that are from the US or have a branch in US or have something to do with USA. So they have very serious fines and penalties. Like, organizations can be used for for money laundering. In the same way, organizations could be used to pay some officials to get some contracts. So in that case also, organizations need to have a FCPA policy, a compliance, anti-corruption policy and systems, so that if some sort of investigation, they can always, show that, we had taken steps to prevent any kind of FCPA violation. Okay. So due diligence is another area. Whenever a company is acquiring another company or merging with another company, they need to analyze their books of accounts, their financials, their systems, all these things. For that, due diligence is done. Traditionally, due diligence is being done by lawyers, also chartered accountants, but mostly lawyers. And the core area of due diligence has always been if to verify if there is any kind of litigation going on, or if there is a possibility of any kind of litigation. or any kind of legal risk involved. So, but however, whenever a transaction like merger or acquisition is happening, there is a very high possibility that a lot of window dressing is being done. So organizations, to increase their valuations, would always show a rosy picture to the other party, and for that the due diligence needs to be strong, and so they need expert professionals like forensic accountants or fraud examiners who, other than the legal aspect, which can be handled by lawyers, they need somebody to verify the valuations, to see if the books of accounts show a true picture. And I know, of course, there are audited books of accounts, but still, an eye of a forensic accountant or a fraud examiner is always helps. Investments and loans are again similar type of, when somebody is investing, it's the same like acquisition or merger, but when somebody is investing in another business, they would want to have a due diligence done as to check the valuations, verify the valuations if they are done properly. Same way, banks are doing due diligence internally, but they are also hiring external consultants to when they have a high exposure, when the loan is being given and the loan amount is high and they feel that it is a risky business that they are doing, they are getting into some risky transaction. So they would want experts to analyze their financial statements, analyze their valuations before giving in the loan. Vendor due diligence, again, if you are getting into a joint venture or you are getting into business with some vendor where huge volumes and huge amounts are involved, one would always want to get a vendor due. There are also employee due diligence, employee background check, but again they are not specific to forensic accountants. They are a bit more basic type of assignments, so that's why we are not discussing them here. Litigation support is another very common area of practice. So what happens is that in a case of financial dispute or in a case of fraud, the court could hire you to just look into the matter and provide your expert testimony or your expert opinion as to what do you think. If because see, in any case when you have to prove if somebody's fraud, if they have done fraud or not, so that is a very technical matter, because for fraud to be proven you need intent. Okay, so to prove intent is a technical matter. It is a very technical thing to prove how, if they intended to do what they did. So in such cases, you need an expert who could give their testimony, who could analyze such things and give their opinion as to if the transaction is fraudulent or is it just a civil matter, not a criminal matter. So for such things, court can hire you to look into the matter and give your expert opinion, which is called expert testimony. They could also hire you just to investigate something. Like, okay, they are in the middle of a case and they want to investigate that the funds have been moved from this bank account to some place and we don't know where the funds have gone. So we just investigate and find out how the movement of funds has happened and who all are involved and where are the funds now. So for that also, courts have been hiring. If you are an expert and you have experience and knowledge in this specific field, then courts will engage you. Of course, you have to empanel yourself with them, but they will engage you. This is a very modern area of practice, which is not actually an area of practice. It is something which is evolving. Actually, I think it is in a very nascent stage. This is developing. So organizations are looking at fraud analytics. So what are fraud analytics? Fraud analytics are basically analyzing the data to figure out red flags and fraud to detect fraud. So there are different organizations who are now employing fraud analytics. There are different models also, anomaly analytics, predictive analytics. All those technical things are there and they are coming up. I have heard of a project by Income Tax Department wherein they have hired a firm in 2016 that picks up data from different sources and then analyzes that data and then tells the income tax department as to where tax evasion is happening or who is involved in tax evasion. I think you would be getting notices that says that, you know, you have that seem to be very computer generated. Notices many a times are very computer generated. Okay, this you have done this transaction, and so as per the income tax department, this is your income, but you have shown this much income, so this is the difference, so pay tax. So that is that is being done even in our income tax department. Our GST department are using fraud analytics, but and they are improving. So not just the tax departments, even credit card, debit card companies, financial institutions, they are also employing fraud analytics. Even the online retail companies like Amazon, so they have fraud analytics to figure out which customer is fraudulent, who is just trying to, you know, get the products, use them, and then is going to return them. So all many companies are that have huge volumes. Many startups are getting into fraud analytics because they don't want to lose the money due to frauds. So mostly high volume business, even big retail stores that are selling like supermarkets, real big supermarkets, they also have a fraud analytics systems tools to analyze the data continuously. So these are majorly all. Other than that, you can also be hired to engage to verify, to calculate the loss. So if there was a financial dispute or something like that happened, so to calculate the exact value of the loss will not be calculated like simply just, you know, this is the financial loss. There is a loss of loss which is due to reputational loss. There could be lot of mental stress, that so putting in all those things in value, and all those calculations also forensic accountant is up and hired. Special internal audits are again just internal audits with the auditor proactively looking for frauds, internal frauds, occupational frauds. So they are more effective than the traditional internal audits. So these type of special internal audits are also forensic accountants are being engaged so that they can proactively look for fraud and prevent them. Financial dispute, I have put it in the last, though it is a very big area of practice, but there is a lot of overlap between, because what happens is in a financial dispute, person is a forensic accountant is engaged first to find out what exactly has happened. Why is there a dispute? So, for example, A is saying that, you know, I need to recover about 50 crores from B. B is saying, no, I just have to give him 20 crores. So what kind of contract did they enter? What were the transactions that they had? So to investigate that and to come up with what actually happened, to find the facts and to bring those facts in a report. So for that, a forensic accountant is needed. And again, then when after that, it will be going to court for the arbitration process also, the forensic accountant will be needed to deal with the whole deal in the whole process. So of all like litigation support, investigation, all these things that we discussed are very much used in financial dispute. But this is a very big area of practice. I myself have dealt with too many financial disputes when people are dividing their properties or wealth, dividing their wealth, doing the succession planning, or companies, as I told you, the company that was defrauded of about 80 crores. That was also financial dispute only, because they were saying that no, we have to give you only 10 crores. They was like, you have to give us 100 crores. So these type of financial disputes are very common, and slowly people are understanding the importance of having an expert like a forensic accountant on board, and so they are being engaged. Okay, I think that would be all. Thank you so much for patiently listening. Open to questions, if any.
Thank you, Bharat sir, for your amazing session. So now, anyone who has questions, please post in the question answer box.
Yeah, there is a question asked that is experience required in forensic work from firms, or some kind of procedure or experience required from all the departments on various things that you have mentioned? A question from
See, it is how could you get the experience until and unless you get the engagements? So this is always, there is this vicious circle which I've seen when we used to earlier apply for IBA empanelment. So they would require experience in bank forensic audits. Now we are applying for empanelment in IBA because we do want to do bank forensic audit, but we do not have an experience in bank forensic audit. So that was now, I mean, recently they have removed that kind of a condition. I think if you want to get into the field, what you should do is that there are some certifications, global certifications. Even ICAI is very proactive in that there is FAFD, Forensic Accounting Fraud Detection Certificate course. They're also coming up with an advanced certificate course in forensic accounting. Soon that will be announced. So then they have also come up with the forensic accounting standard. So if you are a chartered accountant and you do these courses, I think there is sufficient ground, sufficient knowledge and expertise for you to proceed in taking up investigations. Other than that, you can also, for starting, you can always take up international certifications along with these. So if you have some kind of knowledge, extra knowledge, specialized knowledge, then the people would hire you for private investigations, or even the enforcement authorities would look into you. So this is a good starting point. But even chartered accountants in themselves are capable of handling forensic accounting engagements. I think there was, how can we apply to Big Four or other tend to join forensic department? So they have openings, and what I've seen is even fresher chartered accountants who do not have any other certification, not even the certificate from ICAI, FAFD, even those people are hired. One good enhancement you can have is that if in whichever firm you are working, during your articleship period, if you could get some kind of experience or exposure with fraud investigations or forensic accounting, or you could ask your principal to send you to another firm for a specific engagement. So if you have some kind of an experience, then it would be much easier for bigger firms to hire you. So that is logically also, if you have some experience, they would want you to work with. How can we find firms doing forensic audits? I think there are too many firms. Publicly, there are many firms, very popular firms. Other than the Big Four, there's Grant Thornton, there is BDO, then Talati and Talati is doing, Chokshi and Chokshi is doing. There are many firms, Pipara and company, and many firms. You just Google it also, no? There are, but if you cannot actually identify also, because now almost all firms are doing forensic audits also, because IBA and economic offense, they are just empaneling most of the firms. So most of the firms are doing forensic audits also. any specific requirement for a firm's eligibility. Again, it depends, on different empanelments. I feel it is easiest for you if you want to work with the police or the EOWs. They pay the least, but if for starters you can work with them also, because they do not have too many requirements. Then IBA is a good option. IBA does not have very high requirements. Again, you can start working with banks also for forensic audits. As you move higher, like SEBI, SFIO, all these people have too many eligibility requirements. You need to have 10 years, 20 years experience in the firm, and so many partners and all. It again depends on empanelment to empanelment. Can we move management trainee role to forensics later, or as being fresher, we can't sit idle? Okay. I don't think there is a question in that. Yeah. What are the best international certifications? Okay, so CFE, Certified Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, offers the CFE certification, which I feel is the most relevant and recognized certification for getting into forensic accounting and fraud investigations. But there are many more certifications coming in. Certified Financial Crime Specialist is another. Again, then there is, if you want to get specifically into anti-money laundering, then we have a certified anti-money laundering specialist. But for forensic accounting, fraud investigations, I think CFE is the most relevant and the most popular certification. Efficient forensic standards with proper implementation will prevent frauds. I don't think they will prevent frauds, because the FAIS standards are majorly post-mortem. They are for investigations after frauds have happened, investigations, and they are basically best practices as to how investigations are to be concluded. But FAIS will definitely improve the quality of engagements, the quality of investigations that our members are doing. And since if the quality is improved, and then fraud would be detected and concluded more with those standards, that would always be deterrence to do fraud, because then people are get caught more. So logically, if you take that flow, there is a possibility that FAIS could help prevent fraud also. Can we connect with you on LinkedIn? Yes, you can, please. I am CA Bharat Jeswani on LinkedIn. Can semi-qualified CA get a job in forensic accounting and audit? I think in mid-size CA firms, they can hire you in forensic engagements or for audit also. Do you have any checklist to identify ghost employees and related party transactions? Yes. Actually, I've written a book which is called The Frauditor. There are specific checklists for all types of schemes. But if you can connect with me somewhere else, I mean, if you could just mail me this specific requirement, I'll share with you the checklist specific to ghost employees and related party. Does CFA require experience in forensic crime before? No. You just need to be a graduate, I feel, and some minimum auditing experience will also do. Okay, I think those are all. Anybody else? Anything? I think this is all.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you,
so
Bharatji. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for having me in.
Any Q&A further? I think so. All have covered, Bharatji. Thank you very much, Bharat Jeswani ji, to sharing your experience regarding opportunities in forensic accounting and fraud investigation. As per your last word, government department like GST and income tax also needs CA to be a part of the fraud investigation. That is a very prouding moment, sir. Being a chartered and you are working with the police and everywhere where chartered accountant we investigate in depth. As you are rightly said, the job of CBI is remarkable to investigate a bigger fraud, but the role of CA also mark in the same page to investigate any deficit or fraud in a corporate and banks. It was chartered accountant who firstly notice and update leakage in corporate and report the same in numbers, which was further taken by other agency in depthly. Sir, you have given chartered accountants a huge knowledge over these opportunities. So there is a large opportunity open for chartered accountants. Start with the internal audit, you said, fraud investigation, following with the due diligence. This is a new item. I think so. Today's all audience will update himself in the case of merger and acquisition. So Bharat Bhai perfectly pointed out in his speech all the topics, all the way out. In his speech, you have very well calmly understand your thoughts, answer all the Q&A in very up to the mark, which make a today's session very interesting. Thank you once again, Bharatji, for putting your efforts in today's session and sharing your knowledge over this today's topic. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Always love to be sharing my knowledge and helping wherever possible. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it is glad to hear that you are also author of one book. That is very nice of you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay, we conclude today's session. Yeah, thank you. I think so.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Bye.